Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be stood here in front of you today. I'm going to start with actually a bit of a statement that I'm going to ask for a show of hands in the room. Oil is probably the single greatest contributor to our way of life today. Those who agree with that statement, put your hands up. And those who don't, everyone else, that's fair enough. I think that statement's probably true. Now, saying something like that as a clean tech startup founder when you walk on stage to do a presentation maybe isn't necessarily the first thing you expected to hear. But oil and long-chain hydrocarbons, like the one on the right-hand side, have created so many of the products that we use today. Picking on just two of the products, or two of the molecules that have created many of the products that we use and love, are on the screen as well. So we've got methanol with the orange atom there. That's used as a foundation chemical for anything from plastics to pharmaceuticals, to the chair you're sat on, to the paracetamol that's in your purse. Ammonia, on the left-hand side there with the blue atom, that is probably the single reason why we have 8 billion people on this planet. With ammonia, we can make synthetic fertilizers. With synthetic fertilizers, we can create crops sufficient enough to feed 8 billion people. Pretty much everything we think of, whether it's a computer or anything ultimately, has some sort of polymer associated with it, and it's the clever chemical engineers of the last 100 years that helped us get there. Now, the one molecule on the left there is water. Now, can you see or spot the commonality across all of these different molecules that I've got on screen here? Yeah, it's the white blob, the white atom, hydrogen. Now, what I believe is that to sustain all of the things that we love in the world for the next 100 years, we need to figure out a way of building those molecules and building all the products that come from those molecules in a better way. And rather than breaking down the long-chain hydrocarbons, I propose that we build up using hydrogen. The problem with the way that we do it today is that breaking down hydrocarbons to hydrogen to build up molecules today produces 10 times more carbon dioxide than it does hydrogen, and ultimately contributes to 2% of the world's emissions. And that's unacceptable when the global warming crisis is likely to contribute $10 trillion a year to cost by 2050. My name is Luke Tan. I'm the co-founder and the chief product officer at Supercritical. And Supercritical is developing the world's first high-pressure, ultra-efficient electrolyzer that will be able to slash green hydrogen costs and ultimately allow us to move markets towards a much more net zero solution than the hydrocarbon fossil fuel derived solutions that we use today. Now, what that means is that we can access the existing market for hydrogen, so chemicals, ammonia and methanol, worth about 90 million tons of those are produced every year today. And it also allows us to be front and center for the transition for the heavy transport industries, which are going to use liquid fuels that contain hydrogen molecules. We can build all of these chemicals from the ground up, accessing a 390 billion pound market. And the how we are doing it relates to the proprietary approach to water electrolysis that we've developed. We've had to strip back to raw, basic concepts and first principles when it comes to electrolysis and build up again. We've developed the only electrolyzer that's able to operate at high pressures and temperatures. That's 230 bar and 350 degrees C. And we've taken that product to a midterm scale, and we'll be going to commercial deployments this decade. In reinventing the electrolyzer, we've not only enabled this optimal operating efficiency region, we've also taken out a lot of the other problems that sit in electrolyzer technologies today. Expensive raw materials like iridium and rare earth metals are no longer a problem. PFAS forever chemicals, which are a challenge in supply chains and potentially a toxic end-of-life case, have been removed. And we've solved much larger system-level problems. Core to our innovation is our membraneless electrolyzer cell. Now, there'll be different levels of understanding about electrolysis in the audience, so forgive me if you're an expert. But most electrolyzers, well, all electrolyzers, are made up of a core cell that's then multiplied to produce more hydrogen in the same way that a battery cell is produced, deployed in stacks. You have an anode and you have a cathode. Your anode produces oxygen and your cathode produces hydrogen. Now, every electrolyzer on the market today has a membrane that sits between those two electrodes. That membrane fulfills two purposes. One is to stop the hydrogen-oxygen mixing, because when hydrogen-oxygen mixes, bad things happen, explosions and flammability. But it also second goal for it is to try and reduce the resistance while still maintaining conductivity. The problem is that the thinner you have it, the better the performance is and the higher the efficiency. But the thinner you have it, the more risk you have when it comes to long-term durability. Now that is a real massive problem to solve within the electrolyzer space. And we've solved that by taking it away entirely, developing a new architecture for electrode cells, using flow to separate the hydrogen and oxygen, and we've demonstrated cell efficiencies of 95% and gas purities of 99% and above. Pure, safe, and high-performing. It's not been easy. Over the last 5 years, we have had a brilliant team working tirelessly through generations and generations of cells, and we've now got a team that's about 35 people strong. We set out with a mantra to not just be another science experiment. Our goal was always to commercialize and solve the world's biggest problem, climate change. We've worked hand in hand with industry from the get-go, and we've now signed 9 pre-commercial agreements with forecasts for demand in excess of £1.6 billion. We're also backed by some of the biggest names in venture capital and corporate venture capital. In 2024, in December, we secured investment from Shell and Toyota, Shell being one of the largest hydrogen demand centers, Toyota being one of the leading manufacturers in the world, along with being one of the leading electrochemical experts. We are building an ecosystem around us, finding partners through our investor network, through our customer network that are going to drive us and pull us forward, because we will not solve the climate change problem alone. This is a problem that we need to solve together, deploy as quickly as possible with the best technology in the right places. We're on the precipice of a very exciting moment for Supercritical. With the Series A funding that we secured back in December, we have secured new facilities in London. So we're moving into a 6,000 square foot arena with a bespoke lab space for our high pressure, high temperature testing, workshops for prototyping and initial pilot systems, and then office space on top of that. That's increased our test capacity 5-fold. We're now looking at 3,000 hours of test time every month going into 2026. Our T-side demonstrator in the UK's leading chemical area is going to be at TRL6 in 2026. We have secured our first granted patent in 2024. Our third patent family has gone public and have been published this year, and we have we haven't had any reason to believe there will be any objections to patent family 2 and patent family 3. We cover over 40 countries when it comes to patent coverage, and I'm very excited to say that we are securing our first commercial contract. Just last month, we had one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies sign a contract for cash to deliver reports ahead of a potential pilot deployment. Now I'm here today to ask you whether you are one of these investors. Are you a perfect investor that understands Deeptech, understands climate technology, is willing to go on the journey to solve one of the world's biggest problems and make some of the most money in an ever-changing ecosystem? You're comfortable with hardware, You have ticket sizes in the region of 2 to 20 million, and you value founders, and you're more than just cash. You have the ecosystem, you have the network, and you're here to help support your founders and your companies to grow. If that does sound like you, if you're a company like that, please speak to me after this presentation. I'd love to speak to you about what opportunities we have in 2026 and how we can help grow and reduce climate change and continue to live in the lovely world we live in, with clear conscience. Thank you very much.